Today we're presenting our webinar on using domain verification with Amazon Simple Email Service. I'm Jen Steele and I'm the Product Marketing Manager for Amazon SES. We also have two members of the Amazon SES team to field your questions at the end of our webinar. Chris Wheeler, our Lead Technical Program Manager, and Justin Kreitz, our Lead Developer. Today we have a pretty simple agenda. To make sure we're all on the same page, I'll go through a brief overview of Amazon SES and how to get started. Then we'll jump into verification in detail, including why you need to verify your sending domain or email address, how to verify email addresses, how to verify your domain, including Route 53 integration, unverifying your domain, and troubleshooting common domain verification issues. Finally, I'll briefly go through our support resources, and then the team and I will be taking your questions. So what is Amazon Simple Email Service? We are a cloud-based email sending service. You can pay as you go. We require no contracts. We have the reliable, redundant Amazon infrastructure, and we're built to require little to no infrastructure on your part, which will allow you to scale your email sending quickly and easily. Now let's take a look at how SES works. A client application acting as an email sender makes a request to Amazon SES to send email to one or more recipients. If the request is valid, Amazon SES composes an email message based on the request parameters and then queues it for delivery. The message is routed over the internet to the recipient's internet service provider, or ISP, which then delivers the message to the recipient's inbox. If the recipient's email address does not exist, the ISP sends a bounce notification to Amazon SES. The service then forwards the notification to the sender. A recipient who does not want to receive the message can register a complaint with their ISP by clicking their spam button. An ISP which chooses to set up a feedback loop sends the complaint to Amazon SES, and we then forward it to the sender. Let's take a minute to talk about our pricing. We have a flat rate of 10 cents per thousand email messages. As I mentioned earlier, we don't have any minimum commitments or subscription fees. We do charge for data transfer out, but your first gig each month is free. If you choose to send email with attachments, the attachments are billed separately at 12 cents per gig. And like many AWS services, we do have a free tier. If you're an Amazon EC2 user, you can send 2,000 messages each day for free when you call SES from your EC2 instance directly or through AWS Elastic Beanstalk. We have a fair number of customers who can operate entirely within this free tier. So now let's talk about how to get started with Amazon SES, and let's look at where domain verification falls into the grand scheme of things here. I'll review how to sign up, briefly show you where verification fits, and look at how to send a test email. Then I'll go through our sandbox and how to request production access, and finally talk about the different ways to send email via Amazon SES. We will be getting to domain verification. I just want to see you to see where it fits. Excuse me. Okay, so first, you need to sign up for AWS if you don't already have an account. You can get started with any of our services in a matter of minutes. When you first have an AWS account, you'll be in the Amazon SES sandbox, where you can only send to or from verified email addresses, and you have a testing quota of 200 messages per day. Really, this is where you're making sure you can get set up. You know you're in the sandbox by the big yellow box at the top of this window here in your AWS Management Console, or if your sending quota is only 200 emails per 24-hour period. Your next step is to verify a new sender, a domain, or an email address. As I said before, we're going to dive into this a little more later in the presentation, so I'll just mention here that you need to verify any email address or domain you want to send email from. Let's skip right to the next step, sending test email. You can send a test email in several different ways. You can set up your systems to use the SMT endpoint or to call one of two different APIs, or you can use this management console to send a test email. To send via the management console, you select the email address or domain from which you want to send the test email, click the Send a Test Email button, and fill out the form to send the email. So as I mentioned before, right now we're in the sandbox. Let's talk about what that means for sending your test email. When you're in the sandbox, you can only send from or to verified email addresses. Basically, you can only email yourself. Sorry, that's verified email addresses or domains. You have other limitations as well. You have a tiny quota, 200 messages per day, and you can only send one email message per second. You're in the sandbox here to run a proof of concept. It's a testing environment. Once you have production access, that looks a little different. When you're in the SES production environment, your quota will be 10,000 messages per day and will continue to rise as you send your production email through SES. You will also see your TPS, the number of emails you can send per second, continue to rise as well, although you start at 5. And while you can still only send from verified email addresses and domains, you can send to any email address in the world. To get production access, you have to request it. Again, you can see that you don't have production access if you only have a 200 message per day quota and you have a big yellow box at the top of your management console. To request production access, click on the Request Production Access button. Clicking this button will take you to the Amazon SES Production Access form. Please fill it out completely. Production access requests take up to 1 business day to process, and if our team has any questions for you, we'll get in contact with you. Please note that we will be looking at production access for the account you're currently logged into when you fill out this form. If you have multiple AWS accounts, please make sure you're logged into the correct one before filling out the form. It will automatically fill in the email address associated with the logged in account, so you can double check it that way. Once we have processed your request, we will send you email confirmation or any questions we have to that address, the primary one associated with that AWS account, the one that was filled in here. However, if you don't regularly check that account, there's an easy way to tell whether you have production access. Just check your management console or call the GetSend Quota API. A quota of more than 200 messages per day means that your production access has been granted. And this is what the management console looks like. You can see that you've moved up to a production quota of 10,000 messages per day, and the big yellow box asking you to request production access or verify a new sender is gone. When your management console looks like this screenshot, you can send email to any email address, no recipient verification necessary. But of course, you'll still need to verify any new sender address through the same process that we looked at before and that we'll look at shortly, because that is, after all, what this webinar is about. Once you have production access, send your production email through SES. By sending as much of your production email as you can through SES, you'll find that your sending quota will increase naturally. Our final getting started step is to send email and grow your quota. We offer several different ways for you to send email via Amazon SES, and you should use whatever is easiest to integrate into your systems. You can send via our SMTP interface or through one of 2 different APIs, Send Email and Send Raw Email. And as I said before, once you've integrated your systems into Amazon SES and you're sending your production email, you'll start to see your quota grow. Now, if it's not growing quick enough, or if for some reason you can't set up your systems to send some of your production email through it, you can manually request a higher quota via the extended access request form. I've included a link to that form here, and you can also get to it right from your management console, as we'll see later in the presentation. Okay, now that you have a better idea of how to get started with Amazon SES, let's talk about what we're really here to do, talk about verification. I'm going to talk about why we require verification, email verification, and domain verification, including the Route 53 integration. Then we'll talk about unverifying your domain and troubleshooting a few common domain verification problems. So we commonly get asked, why? Why do we require customers to verify their sending identities? Well, first, it's a proof of ownership. We need to make sure you are who you say you are. And as a result, it protects legitimate sending. No phishing. Believe me, Amazon is very sensitive to this, as are ISPs. To protect your sending, we need to do everything in our power to protect legitimate sending. It also helps protect our customers' brands. This is similar to preventing phishing, but in this case, we just want to make sure if you want to send from a particular domain that you have access to either a mailbox on the domain or that domain's DNS, which usually means that you are legitimately associated with that brand. All of this proof and protection helps to keep Amazon SES's IP address reputation high, which helps increase deliverability for all of you, our customers. So let's look at verifying email addresses, which you'll want to do in a few cases, such as if you do not have access to your domain's DNS, or if you can't wait up to 72 hours for DNS records to propagate before you start sending your email through Amazon SES. Please note that to use email address verification, you must have a mailbox associated with a verified email address, as you'll see, and you'll see why in a couple of slides. To verify your email address, go to your AWS Management Console, click on Verified Senders, and click the Verify a New Email Address button. Fill your email address into the dialog box that appears, and click the Verify This Email Address button. Then you go to the inbox for the address you're verifying and find that verification email. Click on the URL or copy and paste it into your browser in order to verify the email address. You'll get to a thank you page telling you that you're ready to start using that email address with SES. If it's been a long time since you've sent that if it's been a long time since you sent that address the verification email, you might get an error message when you try to click the link. If that's the case, just go back into the Management Console and re-enter that email address for verification. If it has been an hour since you requested that your email address be verified and you have not received this email, there are two things that you should do to troubleshoot. First, you should check your spam folder. Verification emails sometimes get stuck in there. The second is that you should make sure that the email address you're trying to verify is able to accept external mail. Okay, now let's talk about the real reason we're here, domain verification. You will need to verify each sending domain or subdomain from which you wish to send. Verifying a domain does not automatically verify its subdomains, so if you want to send from both, you'll need to verify both. For example, if I want to send via Amazon SES from both Amazon.com and AWS.Amazon.com, I'll need to verify both of them. Note that your sending domain or subdomain consists of everything to the right of the @ sign in the email address, so they will rarely, if ever, contain www like your website address does. To start the domain verification process, go to the SES tab of your AWS Management Console, go to Verified Senders, select the Domains tab, and click the Verify a New Domain button. In the box that appears, type in the domain or subdomain that you want to verify and click Verify this domain. A window will appear that will give you the information that you will need to put into the DNS settings of that domain. We verify your domains via a TXT or text record. We check to make sure that you have a text record in your DNS with the values that we provided, and we consider your domain to be verified if that record is there. So take the information from this window and create the text record in your DNS settings. You should note that it can take up to 72 hours for DNS information to propagate and for your domain to successfully verify. However, it usually takes only a few hours. So as you can see in this screenshot, the domain that I just put in for verification is now on my Domains tab with the status of Pending Verification. Once Amazon SES detects the text record in my DNS, the status will change to Verified, and I'll receive an Amazon SES Domain Verification Success confirmation from Amazon Web Services. If it has been more than 72 hours and we have not detected the presence of a text record with the values that we provided, we will change the status to failed, and you will receive an Amazon SES Domain Verification Failed email from Amazon Web Services. If that happens, click the retry link next to the failed status notification that you'll end up seeing here in the Management Console. This will reinitiate the domain verification process. Then set up the text record with the new information. If you need to retrieve the text record information for your domain, simply go back into the Domains tab here, click on the domain, and the text record information will appear in the section below the one you see here. To refresh this screen and check your status, click on the refresh button in the upper right corner. You don't have to use the Management Console to use domain verification, however. You can use domain verification programmatically via these API actions. Verify domain identity starts the process for you and will return the text record info that you need. Get identity verification attributes will tell you the status of your domain verification and return the text record information as well. List identities will list all verified domains and email addresses attached to your account, and delete identity will allow you to delete a verified email address or domain. You can read more about all of these in the Amazon SES API reference. So let's look at how this works with Amazon Route 53 integration now. To start the process, click on the Verify a New Domain button, the same way we did before. In the box that appears, type in your domain or subdomain, just like we did before, and click the Verify this domain. Now, instead of copying the text record information that displays, if you see it, click the Use Route 53 button in the lower right-hand corner of this dialog box. You'll select the hosted zones you want to update and click the Create Record Sets button. Note that I only have one hosted zone here, but you may see multiples. If you then go into the hosted zone or zones for which you created record sets, you'll see the text records and their values will be the ones generated by Amazon SES, as you see here. Please note that if you use the Amazon SES API to set up domain verification, you will need to use the Amazon Route 53 API to create the record set for your domain. From here, the process is the same. Amazon SES checks periodically to see if the information is here and will let you know the status of the verification. Removing a verified domain is a straightforward process. Simply select the domain in your AWS Management Console and click the Remove button. We confirmed that you want to delete the verified domain, and you will no longer be able to send from that domain if you click the Yes, Delete Sender button. So now that we know how to set up and remove verified domains, I wanted to talk a little bit about troubleshooting. By and large, the biggest issue that people have been having with domain verification is either not setting up the text record in their DNS or in setting it up incorrectly. So if your domain verification is in a failed state and you've gotten the domain verification failed email from Amazon Web Services, then look at your DNS info. Is the text DNS record present? And then make sure it's in the right format. So you check it and then you retry the verification. Again, if it's in the failed state, you can actually click Retry Verification right there in your AWS Management Console. If you're getting a verification error when you try to send your email, double check the state of your domain verification. Is it pending? Is it failed? You can check the DNS record and, if necessary, retry verification or simply wait until verification has gone through. Now I want to talk briefly about the support resources we have available for you. I'll go through our documentation, our forums, our extended access form, and our blog. We have 3 different resources in our documentation for you, and you can get to these via the documentation link on the SES homepage, which is at aws.amazon.com/SES. The first is the Amazon Simple Email Service Getting Started Guide. This guide will walk you through the getting started steps that I showed you earlier in this webinar in a little more detail. The second is the Amazon Simple Email Service Developer Guide. This guide gives you all of the detail you will need in order to set up your system to send email through Amazon SES. The third is the Amazon Simple Email Service API reference. This reference contains all of the Amazon SES API calls, parameters, and data types you can use. Next is the forum. I particularly enjoy the Amazon SES, SES forum, which you can get to via the community forum link on the SES page or through your management console. Here you'll find all of our product and feature announcements, but I have to admit that's not what I find most interesting. Here is where SES users ask and answer questions about the service. You'll also find almost every member of the Amazon SES team on here quite often answering people's questions. We do read every single post on here, whether or not we answer, and we take your questions, concerns, and suggestions very seriously. The next resource I wanted to discuss was how you increase your sending limits. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, if you send production email through SES after you gain production access, your quota should naturally increase to meet your business needs. Sometimes, however, there are business events that make natural ramping impractical. To handle those cases, please click on the Request Increased Sending Limits link in the Management Console. This will take you to the Amazon SES Extended Access Request form. We use the information you enter into this form to make sure that you have the quota you need for your business. Please fill out this form completely and let us know why you will need a manual quota increase and to what level. You might have a big launch coming up, or your Facebook game is showing signs of going viral. Please try to give us a good idea of exactly what your quota will need to be so that we can make sure we put you in the correct tier. You should also note this request usually takes 1 business day to process, so you'll want to plan ahead. If we do require more information to process your request, someone will get in touch with you. Please note that we will advise you of your request results in an email that will be sent to the email address associated with that AWS account. Or, of course, you can always check your quota through the Management Console or through the Get Send Quota API call. In the console, you can see your quota, how much of it you've used, and your maximum send rate. When your quota is increased either naturally or via a manual adjustment, you'll see it right here. We maintain our own blog for Amazon SES, and we update it at least weekly with announcements, best practices, how-tos, explanations, and code samples. We'd love for you to come comment and tell us what you think of it, as well as request whatever kinds of posts you'd like to see. So that's using domain verification with Amazon SES. We tried to build the features that we thought you'd find most useful, and your initial feedback has been great. If you want to tell us what you think or request any features, please visit our forums and tell us. Your input directly influences our product development. We love our customers, and we want to make sure that we're developing features to meet your needs. So now we can take some questions. I hope that we have a few that have been typed into the box. No? Okay, if anybody has any questions, please type them into the questions box now. There is one question that actually I have, and that is, how many verified domains and email addresses can I have? Chris?
Thanks, Jen, and I appreciate the great presentation. I'm sure our attendees did as well. To answer your direct question, every customer is allowed to have up to, or every AWS ID is allowed to have up to 1,000 verified identities. And identities include both the email addresses you can send from and the domains as well. So you've got plenty of space there to grow into your verified identities room. I also noticed that we had another question that our user submitted. How long do they have to keep the record in place? So this is the domain verification record that SES provides. It is imperative that you keep that record in place as long as you want to be sending from the verified domain or domains that you have verified with the service. And so what that means is you shouldn't put the record in place with your DNS provider, have it be verified, and then the next day remove it because SES checks against that, that key that we provide every time you try to send from that domain. So please leave it in place. Another question along that line was, is there anything you can edit in the record that SES provides? And the answer to that is no. Please use exactly what Amazon SES provides, that value they provide, so both the record name and the record value. It has to match exactly in your DNS as to what Amazon SES provided, and that's what we're going to be looking for. Any other questions?
So another question we received is about attachment types. Is there still a limit on the number of attachment types or the types of attachments? We do continue to have limits on attachment types. We're willing to review the types of attachments that we support on a case-by-case basis. You can find the types of attachments that we support in the Amazon SES Developer Guide. Please let us know if there's a media type that you'd like to send that we don't support there. We're always looking to expand that list, so please just contact us or post in our forums. Let us know what type of attachment you'd like to send, what you're hoping to do with that, and we will take a look. I think we're currently adding new attachments to that list about every 2 weeks to a month. So just let us know, and we will take a look at that. Another question we received was, can you have separate limits per domain? So once you've verified a domain, you can send from any number of email addresses on that domain. So what that means is that if you had 10,000 or a million email addresses that you wanted to send from, you'd be able to do that without any barriers. Another question was, can the 1,000 limit on the number of domains be increased? We currently don't have a process for increasing that limit on a case-by-case basis. But if you have a use case for an even larger total number of domains than 1,000, we'd be happy to hear about that. We're always willing to expand our service limits if there are use cases for going beyond them. So that's something we'd love to hear about. We always want to make Amazon SES work for you.
I received another question on here asking about the pass-fail status of an extended access request. And if you'll recall, the extended access request is simply where an SES customer wants to send faster or larger amounts than the ramping schedule allows for. So if you fill that form out, you will get a response back from Amazon SES. Now make sure you're checking the email address associated with the account that you submitted the request under. And there might sometimes be some back and forth as well. So if you receive a rejection, there is a chance to appeal or have a discussion with with us via that venue. Another question I received was, is it possible to brand the verification email? And this is a question we've gotten from several customers over the months. At this time, it is not possible to brand the verification email. It comes from Amazon SES, and there are certain data attributes in there that show that it's from Amazon SES as well. However, this is something that we're thinking about, and you could potentially see a change to this policy in the future, so please stay tuned. Another question that we got was, how does Amazon SES domain verification relate to DKIM and domain key email authentication? This is a great question, and both of those, domain verification and DKIM and domain keys, obviously work off of DNS values. Unfortunately, that's where the association stops. Domain verification does not play with authentication at all. So if you want to send DKIM or domain keys verified mail, you will have to sign the messages yourself. Again, we've received feedback from this over the past couple of months, and we're working on ways to make this easier for our customer base. So please stay tuned.
So another question we received was, can we have different sending limits per verified domain? So for example, if one domain ends up sending poor email, could that affect the sending limits of all of my domains as a whole? So currently, your quota and your sending limits are based on your account as a whole. So those are not per domain today. We have received feedback about this, that there are use cases where our customers would like to separate the quota or the reputation of different domains that they're operating. We've seen this come up a lot, especially in the case of resellers or companies who have other companies as their customers and support a large number of different properties. This is definitely something that we're looking at in the long term. We'd like to find ways to make this easier. We have some long-term ideas for how we can separate the reputation and quota of each verified domain from other domains, but currently that is rolled up at the account level.
And another question that we received from the audience is an inquiry about discussing the upper limits on sending a bit more. The person here mentions that they saw limits of 10K in the presentation, and will we be able to handle a mailing that currently goes out to 2.7 million recipients with potential to increase to 4 million in the next year? And the easy answer to this is you can look at both of the limits that you have in place. You can go to the management console and see what is your daily limit, and so that's the volume of mail that you can send within a 24-hour period, and what's your sending rate, and so that's how many messages you can send per second. And from there, you can calculate whether the limit that you currently have is going to accommodate the mailing that you need to do. And if it doesn't, then you can go to the extended access request form, what I was answering in a previous question, and put in your request as to why the limits don't accommodate your sending needs. Of course, that will be reviewed. We might go back and forth with you via email. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're providing you the amount of bandwidth you need to send out your high-quality mail. And so it's simply just figuring out what your limits are and how your sending needs play with those limits.
Just to add to that, limits are not something that we ever want to be in your way. We've designed the limits and the quota so that they naturally grow as your sending grows. We want them to stay ahead of your sending. So as Chris said, if you ever find yourself colliding with those limits and you feel like you're not able to send the amount of email that you'd like to, please submit an extended access request form. We'd love to hear about that.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for the great questions today. And that does wrap up today's presentation. Thanks so much to Chris and Justin, and thanks to everyone for attending today's webinar. You'll all receive a follow-up email with a link to this recorded presentation, along with a link to the presentation itself. I encourage you all to periodically check the webinar session of AWS.com to see listings of other upcoming webinars or virtual events, as well as recorded webinars and other videos. On behalf of Amazon Web Services and our presenters, thanks so much for joining us today to learn more about Amazon's simple email service.